Hume Netball time on the Flow Friday Sports Show, and it's time for me to link up with Aimee Riley, coming to us from the Riverina to talk all things Hume Netball as it all gets down to the business end of the season. Aimee, lovely to have you. How are you?
I'm great, thanks, Alice. It's always a pleasure.
Likewise, Aimee, and there's a lot to discuss, isn't there? Let's get into talking about the results from round 13. And it was an easy enough day for Osborne in their assignment against CDHBU. 71 goal win, I should say, for Osborne. What did you make of that game?
Yes, certainly. And firstly, this entire round, and every single A-grade coach has reflected this in their reports, was one of the worst days for netball in recent memory. We had gale-force winds, we had pouring rain, it was freezing cold across the board. So it was certainly an iffy day for netball at best, but nevertheless, I know some teams are very happy with their efforts and some are still quite disappointed regardless of the rain. Another tough game for CDHBU against Osborne. Despite that weather that I just talked about, the much improved CDHBU shrunk their margin since their last outing against Osborne, which is certainly a positive for them to reflect on. Osborne were absolutely clinical once again in their execution of their game plan. All players had to adjust their game with that gale force wind, just making passing and any sort of gameplay really hard. And despite the weather and score margin, it was a great hit out between both teams. Osborne's best on were Rachel Galvin and Georgia O'Connell, and CDHBU's Bridie Lavis, Christy Schultz and Grace Gillard.
I'm not sure how you can quantify it, Aimee, but would you say objectively that netball's probably one of the hardest codes to play when there's such strong winds and elements abound?
Well, I certainly think coming from a shooter, it's never fun to shoot in strong winds, and I know the footballers certainly had a day as well trying to kick the footy in the wind. It just, even for those teams that play a long game and long passes, everyone had to bring it in short and sharp because anything that was lofty and in the air just got carried away.
There we go. Well, let's continue on discussing some of these results. Brocklesby Burrumbuttock Saints, they went down to Holbrook at home. A good win for Holbrook. I guess it was expected, but maybe the Saints will be disappointed in the margin in the end.
Yes, I absolutely agree with that. It was a great win for Holbrook, and they were looking to really make their mark again after a disappointing for them game against Jindera. I think that they were very hard on themselves, but nevertheless, I know they were unhappy with their game against Jindera and were looking to bounce back. Holbrook really utilised their changes throughout each quarter, and they did that really well to ensure that they continued pushing to increase their margin. As you mentioned, I know Saints would potentially be disappointed with that margin, but I think, again, they're working really hard with the young team to try and build everyone up and create some really nice succession in their A-grade group. So I think it's still a game where they can take a lot of positives out of it, and I know that last time they met, it was a 72-29 margin, so it was pretty similar this time. I don't have Saints best on. Holbrook's were Ness Taylor, Georgia Keogh and Ollie Shaw.
Henty, 16 goals, too good for Billabong Crows. What did you make of that one?
Billabong won this game at their last encounter, and Henty coming in knew that it would be a really strong battle and they really wanted to change the way that game finished. So I know that they're very happy to get that win. They got an early jump and they continued to tick away at just consistently extending their lead for the remainder of the game. Billabong certainly put up a really solid game and utilised any opportunities that they had to ensure that they were within reach for the whole game. Henty's attacking end found a lot of space, and a lot of loose balls that were chased up in the wet made a huge difference. Henty's best on were Shani Shaw and Nikita Singy, and I don't have Crows.
How long in scoring 19 goals against Jindera did they provide some formidable opposition?
Yes, I know that How Long were really disappointed with this game, but all games were abysmal weather this weekend. This was our match of the round, and it certainly was no different to any of the others where it was just terrible conditions. The scoreline doesn't really accurately reflect this game. It was a difficult game, and competitiveness had to be still at its optimum whilst both teams navigated the weather. How Long, as I mentioned, were disappointed with their game, and they felt that they didn't execute their game plan and Jindera made them pay for it. Jindera's team combined really well across the court. All players did their part throughout the game to keep it short and sharp, and they capitalised on turnovers and any errors. I don't think, despite the margin, we can read too much into this game. I have no doubt that How Long are still an extremely competitive and dangerous team to take out the premiership, and I know Jindera absolutely are not reading too much into that margin, and they know that How Long are still very dangerous to them. Jindera's best on were Millie Fawcett, Tegan Vogel and Ellen Cook, and How Long's were Gemma Coburn and Abby Lishke.
There we go. The Giants and Murray Magpies had a pretty close one. a very tight affair, 42-37. The Giants just too good in the end in Waller.
Yes, absolutely. Magpies put up their best game of the season. It wasn't quite enough to see them through, and they went down by 5 goals to the Giants despite an early 3-goal lead. This was a 33-goal turnaround in the deficit from the first time they met. So that's continuing on our trend to a tighter finish to the start of the competition, and certainly some more competitiveness between some teams. At quarter time, Giants had the game level, and they just worked on their possession maintenance in those close contests, and they held off a very persistent and well-improved Magpies. Giants' best on were Courtney Everton, Viv Vainisi and Priya Colhagen. My Magpies, Tanisha Leash and Ash Purtell.
Lockhart and Colcan playing out a 37-all result, a drawn game. Was it the rose in between the thorns as far as a wet weather round went, in your view?
It was a tough game. Extremely slow game, and everyone in each side had their work cut out for them just to be able to get hands on ball. Lockhart were working on some new combinations in defence and attack, and players adjusted really well to that. Colcan have done a great job making strides to improve, with their efforts reflecting in the scoreline. And as we go back through the draw, we can see that they have been constantly building. Whilst Lockhart weren't at full strength, I know that Colcan will take a lot of pride in tying with a top 6 team from where they started. It's a fantastic effort, and I know that Lockhart will be looking to rebound really strongly and make their case towards finals. Lockhart's best on were Hannah Keeley and Claudia Pertzel, and Colcan were Bobby, Zara and Sam.
All right, now as we look at the ladder, Jindera still top with 52 points, Osborne in second with 48, and then we've got How Long in third, Henty fourth, Holbrook fifth, Lockhart sixth, the Giants in 7th, Billabong Crows 8th, Murray Magpies 9th, Colcan 10th, Brocklesby Brumbuck Saints 11th, and CDHBU at the foot of the ladder. But really, Aimee, it's all about what's going to happen between 3rd place and 6th place, because there's not more than, there's less than 2 wins in it, really, between those 4 spots. So that's going to be where the majority of punters are sort of looking for the next few rounds. Would you agree?
Yes, absolutely. If you'd asked me a couple of weeks ago, I would have said that I didn't think the top 6 was going to change. And there has been certainly some game shifting throughout the last few weeks that have meant that if a few funky results happen this weekend that we're maybe not quite expecting, the last couple of weeks could be pretty interesting.
Absolutely. Well, we talked there about sides that did not include Jindera and Osborne, but of course those two involved in the Classico this weekend. It's going to be some fireworks, isn't it? This game being played in Jindera. Hard not to see Jindera winning, I have to say, Aimee.
I don't know. I think Osborne have a really well-trained team. They are very good at executing their game plans. They are extremely persistent across all 4 quarters. They have excellent discipline in what they are wanting to do in each individual position that people are wearing. Jindera do have a couple of girls away as well, so this could be a very interesting game. I think Jindera may just get over the line, but I'm also tempted to call this a draw because I genuinely don't know which way it's going to go.
Shouldn't be any issues for Lockhart getting the win at home. What do you reckon against the Giants?
Well, Lockhart and Giants is 6v7, and this is an interesting game because if Giants do pip Lockhart, they will go into 6th and Lockhart will drop down to 7 and out of that top 6 playing finals. So there's a lot on the line for both of the teams here. Giants have still got a couple of injuries. Lockhart have had maybe a rough last couple of weeks, and I know they will be wanting to really come back strong after, you may argue, a shock draw with Colcan. I definitely think the girls will be keen for a bit of redemption. My tip is Lockhart.
Holbrook should be able to possibly get a run together here because they've got an easy enough game away to CDHBU. Should get it done there.
Absolutely. Holbrook sitting 5th at the moment, and we have talked about how I'd love to see CDHBU get a win at some point in this season. I think it would be a great way for them to finish in the back end, and it would give them reflection for how well they have improved throughout the season. My personal tip is Holbrook, as you said. I think that they will get this win and they'll get the run on, and they'll want to solidify their spot in the top 6 as well.
How long should be able to take out some of those frustrations against Jindera in their game this weekend against the Saints, because they are at home, so you'd fancy how long here?
Yeah, similar story to Lockhart. I think they'll be looking to rebound really strong because I know that they were a little bit disappointed with their game last week. I certainly think they are a team of quite tall shooters, and that that wet weather that we had probably didn't lend itself to their game style very well. So I certainly know that they'll be looking to get back to their game and their style this weekend. And I agree, it's how long for me.
Culcairn, they'll be buoyed after their performance last weekend. How do you see them potentially holding up against Henty? They are at home.
Culcairn and Henty is always a good local rumble. They're 10 minutes apart from each other, the two towns. And regardless of where they are on the ladder, it's always an excellent competition when they meet across all of the grades. Henty, again, wanting to solidify their spot in the top six and make their run to finals. And I know they've been working really consistently on their game plan and putting together the whole court effort. Culcairn have been making some fantastic strides and have absolutely really pushed some of those top teams in the last couple of weeks. I think Henty will get on top of them.
Finally, we've got Magpies Crows. What's your prediction for that one?
This is another quite close one. This is 8 versus 9, and there is a significant difference in the Billabong Crows points to Magpies. There's 8 points difference, so 2 games. Magpies are on 12 and Billabong Crows are on 20. So it doesn't make a difference to ladder positioning in that sense this game, but I certainly think there's a lot on the line for Crows who would want to be finishing really strong and still continuing to try and push for those to try and be competitive against those top finals sides. Just off the top of my head, looking at the ladder, they wouldn't be able to make finals, or they'd have to win all of their games to make finals, would be potentially where they'd be at. So I think in terms of finishing the season strong, both teams will really want to win this game and, establish themselves in some good patterns heading in towards next season. Magpies have had some fantastic runs lately. I think Crows' experienced heads might get the better of the day.
Expertly done, Aimee Riley. Always great to dive into the world of Hume Netball with you. All the best for the weekend. Enjoy the action. We'll speak to you next week.
Thanks so much, Alice. It's always a pleasure.